But it's really nice out today. I did my notes. I did my reading and my notes out on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, out on the my balcony, deck, veranda,
Yeah,
balcony,
same thing.
porch, whatever you want to call
The
it.
slice of outside that you're probably legally required to have access to.
Not legally required. There are plenty of places in this city that do not have one of those.
Gross.
I'm excited though. The place that I saw, the balcony, is not on a main road,
Ooh.
and it is apparently in the summertime, like it's surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
trees, and the trees in the summertime are apparently like the leaves are so thick like you can't see past them, so it's its own little like
Oh, that's
oasis.
so nice. In the place that we used to live in Redacted City, in a different state than the one I currently live in, we had a second floor apartment and there was a lot of trees that came right up to the windows. And so there was all of the trees and we could see the creatures like climbing around. There were red squirrels in there, which was so cool because we never see red squirrels. But one of the other things about that area was the apartment below us had this little sticky outy window seat situation. So there was this tiny little sliver of flat roof beneath one of our windows. And I would sprinkle sunflower seeds out there and we would get squirrels and birds. And we would see the red squirrels and we'd see little juncos. And there was one time we got a really good view of a hawk just chilling in the tree. So it's pretty nice to be tucked up in the trees.
I'd like to be just in the trees now,
Hmm.
in a little hall in the trees, form that seems to form out of nowhere, where I can have dinner with a bunch of elves
Hmm.
as I flee from black riders that the elves won't tell me about. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Ryn. That was a smooth transition.
Thank you. It's almost like we're like professional podcasters or something at
Wow,
this
look at us
point. We're not.
go.
We're so not.
We're if we're operating by the
Um
Cheetah Girls rules, and I don't remember if this was Cheetah Girls 1 or 2, but they are in this music competition that's specifically for amateur musicians. But someone who is trying to sabotage them, who was their enemy from earlier in the movie, ends up paying them a nominal sum for some singing that they do for him. But then when they go to the other big competition that they wanted to be in, the person in charge goes, "Hey, this is for amateur musicians and you got paid for this other gig, so you're technically professionals, so we can't let you perform." And it's this whole big plot conflict. So if we're going by Cheetah Girls rules, which we should for all things in life, we have not received any money in exchange for creating this podcast yet, so I don't think we can call ourselves professionals, but we're getting there.
well, in that case, amateur podcasters that we are, welcome, friends, enemies, and eager hobbits, to another episode of The Fandom Apprentice, where I, Ryn, a lifelong Tolkien fan, walk my friend Sam, a new Tolkien fan, through The Lord of the Rings.
It's me. I'm Sam. I'm the other one.
And if you hear any sniffling or sneezing that we don't manage to edit out, I'm so sorry. It is spring,
Mhm.
and currently all of the trees are just jizzing into the air.
See, this is a problem because with that metaphor, I I am a known monster fucker. I feel like I need to disclose this for the purposes of the podcast. It doesn't seem to be relevant yet. I'm sure it will be. But as a known monster fucker, I have recently read, I finished it this morning, Morning Glory Milking Farm, which is about minotaurs, and the title implies exactly what you think it would imply. So the idea of that substance just in the air, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not too far off.
I hate it. Thank you.
It's it's a public service that no one asked me for, and I make everyone's lives worse by talking about it. So it's public disservice. But I am also very sniffly for matching hankies. This one that I stole from you accidentally.
This is a reminder for all of our listeners that this podcast is tagged explicit. I mean, it's literally on the tin.
True.
So, it is what it says on the tin. If you are listening to this podcast, you should have seen the explicit tag. Anyway, as we said, we are going through The Lord of the Rings, and we are currently on the Fellowship of the Ring. Last time we talked about chapters 1 and 2, which means, following how this works, we are today on chapter 3. 3 is company, and we should hopefully be covering up through chapter 5, uh, a conspiracy unmasked.
Spooky.
Yes. So, do you have anything else you want to get to before we start?
So, just briefly, I don't think we touched on this last time, but at the tail end of chapter 2, Gandalf talks about how he is assigning Frodo, which I'm going to have to try so hard not to accidentally call him Bilbo. If I do, it's an accident. We know I'm talking about Frodo. But he gives him a new name. He gives him a traveling name, Mr. Underhill, which is fun. And I like the idea of a traveling name. Both, I mean, because he's going to be doing stuff that's very dangerous. And so people shouldn't know his real name. But it's just kind of a nice concept. He's taking on a new identity for his big journey.
It's very queer. It's
It
very queer. The
is.
changing of the names for different parts of your life.
Mhm.
Um, a name a name is something that you are, but a name is also something that you can put on and take off as it suits you
Mm.
and as you need it. It is a tool that serves you in the end.
That's really beautiful. I like that. I was also thinking about names because I obviously share a name with one of our main characters, and I always feel an immediate kinship with any character named Sam, so I'm glad that this Sam is just this wonderful sweetheart. But if he was terrible, I don't know how I would feel.
This Sam is just thoroughly perfect. Samwise Gamgee is the best.
Mhm.
And we're going to discuss a little bit more about them in a minute. But I do want to say right at the top of Three is Company, we get 2 or 3 weeks had passed, and still Frodo had made no sign of getting ready to go. Frodo is me. I am Frodo Baggins.
Yeah.
Um, I am notorious for not being ready to go in a timely fashion. I am late to everything, and I I am so bad about starting tasks or starting
And
things.
specifically, Frodo is
Um,
moving. I remember when you moved into this apartment where you currently live, it being the day or two before and me asking you if you were fully packed. You were like, haha, no.
the morning of, like, my parents showed up with a van to help me move, and I was like, I had like most of my stuff together, mostly. Like, luckily, like my roommate, who I am still friends with, remained in that apartment. And like I could get back in to get these several things that I
Yeah.
forgot. Because her boyfriend was moving in, so I was moving out. But anyway, we talk about Bilbo. See, I did it
See,
now.
they have really similar names. So it's
Oh,
choose.
we're about to talk about that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they're Frodo is talking about, oh, why don't we push this off a little bit? Why don't we do it in the autumn after our birthday? I love that he still calls it our birthday, despite the fact that Bilbo's been gone for 17 years.
Yeah.
He hasn't heard hide nor hair of Bilbo for 17 years, but it is still our birthday.
There's so many things about this that just stab me in the heart. Every other line in my notes is just sobbing, crying, so sad. I am a very weepy person just in general. I don't think I've actually shed real tears over this book yet, but internally, emotionally, I am crying constantly.
So many. But as someone who also has to leave for reasons beyond my control right around my birthday this year and has to move across town, um, I understand.
Mhm.
I understand Frodo's plight. Um, and Frodo's just like, I have no idea where I'm going
Mhm.
yet. And Gandalf goes, go to Rivendell. Just just start in Rivendell. You'll figure it out.
So helpful, Gandalf. Thank you.
I love that that's his solution. Is I'm going to send the hobbits to the elves, and it's going to be the elves' problem. And so Bilbo, fuck,
See?
Frodo.
See?
It's because we just also like spent weeks talking about the Hobbit.
Yeah, it's really deeply ingrained. This oh,
The
sorry.
No,
Oh,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say this, is now leading up to his preparing to go and selling his Hobbital to the Sackville Bagginses. Boo, hiss, tomato, tomato. But all of that is really just lead up to a line that I know that both you and I have highlighted. Would you like to do the honors?
That Otho had died some years before at the ripe but disappointed age of 102.
That is a good one, but the one after that. There you go. You found it. Mhm.
Do you want to read this for our
Sure.
audience, our explicit podcast audience?
I've already decided that I'm coming out strong, horny on Maine today on the podcast, so I'll bear this burden. Just why Mr. Frodo was selling his beautiful hole was even more debatable than the price. And I don't think that really needs any embellishment or further commentary. I just need everyone to know that that line exists and is presented in the book totally neutrally, just there, and then we have to
Mm-hmm.
continue on with our day like normal.
Yep. Anyway, um,
He did buy another house, so that's nice, I guess.
well, Mary Brandybuck was looking out for a nice little hole for him, or possibly a small house.
Listen, we all can benefit from a good wing person in our lives, and I'm glad that Mary is looking out.
Yeah, I do have noted here that Gandalf is the worst house guest.
Yeah.
He stayed for 2 months, and we have it noted that like in the previous chapter, he comes and he goes with no warning. He'll stay for anywhere between literally like 8 hours to weeks at a time.
Mhm.
You never know if he's going to bring 13 dwarves to your home, or what terrible quest you're going to get dragged on, or whether he's going to disappear for 9 years and you're just not ever going to see him, or whether he's going to explode a fiery dragon over your town.
Mm.
He is the worst house guest.
This is true, yes, and I kind of have a feeling that he isn't helping with the dishes. He probably does some cool magic stuff to be somewhat useful, but he is just fully doing his own thing.
No, the dwarves at least did the
True.
dishes. Gandalf does not do dishes. It's a wizardly privilege. It's the second corollary to our first law of fantasy, which is that wizards don't do dishes.
He should check his wizard privilege, honestly.
Yes.
And speaking of
Uh,
Gandalf, sorry, do you have something?
no. What were you going to say about
Oh, I was
Gandalf?
going to say that this is not the first time that this has been brought up, but it seems like Gandalf is trying really hard to keep it together, but Frodo is really perceptive and can tell that he's worried. And he remarks on this several times that, Gandalf is trying to be chipper, but Frodo is like, he seems really stressed the fuck out.
Which is wild because, like, all through The Hobbit, we see Gandalf being calm and cool and collected when faced with a dragon. And so the fact that Gandalf is now like obviously worried, we know shit's bad.
Yeah.
This immensely powerful being is worried. So shit is very, very bad. I do want to sort of move on to Frodo packing up, and he assembles his army of queer people to help him move out.
Hmm.
Which any queer person who has ever moved knows that is how you move. You assemble a small army of queer friends,
Indeed.
and you move. It does note Frodo's special friends, Pip and Took and Mary Brandybuck, which, for the record, I know there are many people who like to read couples on these characters, and we might have even discussed this last
We
time.
did a little bit, yeah.
Um, a little bit. I'm perfectly happy to read Sam as a couple with Frodo. I do also love them as a queer platonic relationship. Uh, but all three of the other hobbits are related.
Hmm.
Frodo and Merry and Pippin are all related, sort of about the same amount. Pippin and Merry are third cousins. Merry and Frodo are second cousins once removed. So Bilbo's mother, Belladonna Took, was the sister of Mirabella Took, who was Merry's great grandmother. And Pippin and Frodo are third cousins once removed. Pippin is the child of Frodo's third cousin.
I'm trying to envision this in my mind as a family tree, and it is just washing over me. But the point that they are related does stand.
They are related, and interestingly, Bilbo is related to both Merry and Pippin in like two different ways.
Mm.
Frodo is related on one side to Merry and on one side to Pippin, and then Merry and Pippin are related,
Mm-hmm.
but not in the same way that they're related to Frodo. Sam is not related to any of them. He will, in theory, eventually be related to Pippin
Wait, how?
through descent and marriage.
I am confusion.
We'll get there.
Okay.
That's end of Return of the King stuff. Um, but I do just want to like note couple of fun little things. The Sackville Bagginses are Bilbo's second cousins, and Frodo is Otho Sackville Baggins, second cousin once removed.
Mm-hmm.
Lobelia, so Otho, of course, is dead at this point. Lobelia Sackville Baggins was born Lobelia Bracegirdle. She is related only by marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Bilbo's father, Bungo, uh, was brothers. He had uh, two brothers and two sisters, right? Longo and Fosco Baggins,
Mm-hmm.
and two sisters, Rosa and Belba. Belba Baggins married into the Bolger family and is the great grandmother of Fatty Bolger, Frederigar Bolger, who we see coming up through these chapters. Rosa Baggins is the great grandmother of Pippin, Peregrine Took.
Okay.
Uh, Longo Baggins is the father of Otho Sackville Baggins.
Okay.
And Fosco Baggins is the grandfather of Frodo Baggins.
That's so many things. I
It
admire your
is.
dedication figuring all of that out.
It is. I'm literally looking at a family tree. Yeah, so that is how all of them are related to each other. And of course, Bilbo is has some Took in him, as was mentioned in The Hobbit. Interestingly, oh, and Merry has some Took in him. Merry's mother is Esmeralda Took.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I totally. Uh, Merry and Pippin are first cousins.
Okay.
Pippin's father, Paladin Took the Second.
Dope name.
Uh, yes, his sister was Esmeralda Took, who is Meriadoc Brandybuck's mother.
Okay.
Um, they are also related a little bit further back too, but that's a whole other issue. They're related through Hildegrim Took and Mirabella Took a couple of generations back too. So there's just some lovely little inbreeding going on here.
Great.
It's not like terrible inbreeding, but Esmeralda Took and Saradoc Brandybuck, Mary's parents, were let me count back. So we have um first cousins. They were second cousins.
Second cousins is still pretty close. That's
Yeah,
a bit
no, it's
Yeah,
too
that's a bit much. I have
yeah.
second cousins who I just consider as my first cousins because I don't know the difference of how cousins work and what's removed and twice removed. I don't understand how any of that works. So to me, it's all just cousins.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement with that's weird. I, go to Thanksgiving at the home of my second cousins all the time. That is where we do Thanksgiving and where we do Christmas.
Are they the ones with the giant dog?
So they are the ones with the giant
Please
dog.
tell the good people about the giant dog real quick.
The giant dog is a Great Pyrenees, and he is the gentlest being.
And he has
He
big
is the size of a polar
paws.
bear. He has giant paws, and he is so gentle, and he is so large, and he is so fuzzy, and I love him so much. Anyway,
Speaking of,
yes,
oh, sorry, no, you go.
but I know that I said Merry and Pippin earlier were third cousins. They are third cousins. They are also first cousins.
Amazing. Nice and messy.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yike.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that family tree looks so fucking
The
messy.
branches a little bit
Um
tangled.
yeah. Anyway, that was something that I wanted to sort of bring up. I also want to bring up too, because this is going to be our party, our little party of four hobbits, right? Frodo is 50 years old. He was born in 1368 of the Shire Reckoning. It will be currently 1418 Shire Reckoning as they leave the Shire. Uh, Sam is the next oldest. He is 38. So he is 12 years
A
younger
younger
than Frodo.
man. Ooh.
Merry is 2 years younger. He was born in 1382. So he's 36. So he is of age, but only by a few
Mm-hmm.
years. And Pippin's a teenager.
Pippin! Oh no!
Pippin Pippin is 28 years old. He was born in 1390.
Pippin! Oh, you're a baby. What are you doing in
So
danger?
Pippin is essentially like a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, like following these like, Mary's like a college grad. Sam didn't go to college, but he's um of a similar age. And then Frodo is like their older friend who's a solid 10 years older who they met through work or something. Their older cousin.
Pippin is that explains why he's such a pain. He's
Yeah,
still growing
I
into himself.
I do want to sort of keep an eye on this. Pippin being the young, impulsive one. The other thing that I want to keep an eye on as we go through, we know because it's been mentioned that the Tooks are adventurous,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Tooks have that spark. They they go on adventures. They invent golf by killing goblins and knocking their heads down holes. And it's mentioned in The Hobbit multiple times that like Bilbo feels that Tookish fire in him. Uh, of our three gentle hobbits, Pippin, Merry, and Frodo does not have any Took in his recent family tree.
Hmm.
Frodo, well, he's got a little bit. But not nearly as much as the other two. Frodo is a Brandybuck and a Baggins and a Bolger. He is descended from Mirabella Took, I suppose. So I want to sort of keep an eye on this bunch as we go forward, um, on whether or not, sort of the adventurousness that we see from Pippin and Merry versus the adventurousness that we see from Frodo,
I like that. I will be keeping an eye on that as well.
right? Because Pippin, Merry, and Bilbo all have Tooks as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Frodo's last Took ancestor was his grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
Mirabella Took. So, who was the daughter of the old Took. So I have to wonder uh, how adventurous, how that's going to affect his adventurousness. Anyway, now that we have had that tangent,
Very important tangent. This is good background, good unpacking because I would not have had the patience to figure all that out on my own.
I was sitting on my porch with a little bee buzzing around, and I was just like, this feels right to figure this out, to do some Hobbit genealogy.
Yeah,
I'm going to switch on a light. It's getting dark in
good
here.
idea. While you do that, speaking of family members, just briefly to shade Lobelia some more, she shows up and does some stuff that's not important, but it ends with another Frodo did not offer her any tea, period, which is the most stone cold and also I would like to be offered tea by Frodo. I think that would be lovely.
I did write down that exact bit.
Mhm.
And we have to remember this book was written by an Oxford professor.
Mhm.
Like, to us Americans, we know that's an insult. But I am sure to Tolkien's English audience, that is a grave fucking insult. That is fighting words. That is hold a grudge for generations bullshit.
Yeah,
Uh
to me, I'm just aware that that's not even impolite because in American culture, if you're a good host, you'll offer somebody something to drink, but it's not really expected. Um, and so I can get through context that that's sort of shady, but yeah, remembering that this is an Englishman, it's like, oh no.
yeah, no, that's who. Um they also Frodo does they have a little birthday supper before he leaves,
Mhm.
and they drink the last of the good wine
Yeah, I noticed that.
because they absolutely did not sell any of it to the Sackville Bagginses. They can have Bag End, but they sure as shit cannot have anything else in it.
Hell yeah.
So Mary and Fatty Bulger go off to Buckland, to Crick Hollow, and Gandalf had said he'd be back, and Gandalf is not back. We've never had this happen. Gandalf has always been cryptic about like where he's going and when he's coming back, but now he says he's coming back and he doesn't.
Hmm.
And that's concerning.
Just a bit, just a wee bit.
Yeah. Um but they get up and get going.
We get more of Sam being absolutely perfect. And he's saying that he could carry a lot more stuff and that his packet is quite light, said Sam stoutly and untruthfully. But he's really dedicated. If Frodo asked him to carry more stuff, he would. But as he's straining under his heavy pack, he's like, I can carry more stuff. I can do it. He's so sweet.
Um I also just um I love the bit too where, you know, Sam comes up from the cellar wiping his mouth. He had been saying farewell to the beer barrel in the cellar. I love this man's priorities.
He's a hobbit. And we get so much hobbitiness from them, even just in these couple of chapters that we read in preparation for today, that they stop and take lots of breaks and eat lots of food. This is not yet the slog through the wilderness with a bunch of dwarves. These are for people who have the same priorities. They find time for a hot bath later on, and that's sort of getting ahead of ourselves. But I do love just a bunch of hobbits together is a fun dynamic.
I do. I also like do want to note that technically speaking, Bilbo would have traveled over this same country in The Hobbit with the dwarves.
Mhm.
He'd have gone along sort of this same road with them. But the dwarves were very sort of set on getting out of the Shire and getting through. Anyway, they it it does say, you know, Frodo turns he waved his hand and then turned and, following Bilbo, if he had known it, hurried after Peregrine down the garden path.
More just internal sobbing. It's fine. It's fine. It's all
Ugh,
fine.
it's adorable.
Yeah.
I also love, you know, you get the little bit of like hobbits. They're trying to be silent so they make no noise, not even that the animals can really hear. And they had and it does say later too, they had a frugal supper in parentheses for hobbits. So we know that shit was a gorgeous spread.
Yeah.
That was like how you and I like to design our
Mhm.
picnics, with fresh bread. And I mean, it was probably day old bread at this point, but like,
Multiple types of cheese.
yeah, multiple types of little dried sausages and little fruits and things. Um, a balsamic
Mhm.
glaze.
Essential.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, we do have here an intelligent fox.
Yeah. And we just get to pop inside its mind for a minute.
I kind of love it. I kind of love the what's the phrase? I know like third person limited is sort of like following one character and one character's thoughts in the third person. Third person omniscient.
Yes.
Yes. I remember high school English.
We're gay. Of
Um
course we remember high school English.
ooh.
Did you have a good high school English teacher or did you have a bad one? Because I know that redacted school was kind of messy when it came to teachers.
I had a couple of lovely high school English teachers and a couple of less lovely high school English teachers.
Fair.
It was pretty much half and half. I had two that I really liked and two that I was not a huge fan of. And one of whom told me uh, on my senior thesis, we had like, or not a thesis, it was like a senior project thing. We had to write a big paper for it, and told me that I could not use the singular they in my paper
Ooh.
uh, to refer to anyone because it was grammatically incorrect, and that she would take points off if I did. Uh,
Hmm.
and I had to use he or she, and I was like, we're having this discussion on the tail end of our gender unit where I specifically brought up trans people
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't bring up trans people once in the entire gender unit. This is like 2015, 2014, 2015, mind you.
Yeah.
So, and I being a baby trans, uh, a baby non-binary, was having a time with that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
My high school English teacher, for the record, Mr. Doherty, love him. If that is enough information for someone to dox me and find out what school I went to, then I'm impressed with your skills. But anyway, he was fantastic and I took multiple classes with him and I think he taught my AP Lit class. But he also, I think after I graduated, took over the running of our GSA from the awful teacher who was running it before who nobody liked, and so I am very glad that it was left in his capable hands afterwards because he's the best. I think I'm still Facebook friends with him. Anyway,
oh, good.
speaking of gender, just a briefly touching on Hobbit gender theory once again. There's just
Yes.
a brief when they're out on the road, waking up in the morning, and I literally was about to say Bilbo, Frodo. Says, "Wake up, hobbits," he cried. "It's a beautiful morning," which is so lovely and cute. But he says that in the same way that a different adventuring party would be like, "Wake up, men," rallying their group. And
Or like, all right,
yeah,
boys.
it's in that same way where normally in if we're dealing with a human group, there would be some kind of gender term there. But in this case, it's hobbits. And I'm like, yeah, that is correct.
It is hobbits. Um, I do want to flash right back to the fox
Mhm.
real quick, just
Yes, yes,
because
we got
our
tangented.
lovely intelligent fox, our lovely intelligent fox is very. It's very obvious that this is mighty queer.
Mhm.
That this is a lovely little queer platonic trio that we have going on here, with Pippin and Sam and Frodo. And yeah, we do have Sam very much still in sort of the servant role right now.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that because right after my gender theory note, I can't tell how Pippin specifically, and then Mary later on, but how Pippin feels about him, if he respects Sam, because Sam is very much in his sort of servant mode right now. And I can't really tell how the other hobbits are perceiving him at the moment. Because they say some stuff that I can't tell if it's joking or if it's mean.
Yeah, I mean, I saw at one point sort of a like Sam is serving as Frodo's valet
Mhm,
essentially, or Frodo's Batman.
mhm,
Um, and we've you and I have talked a little bit before about Tolkien's history in the military
mhm,
and Tolkien serving in the First World War, in which he would have very much been familiar with the concept of like a nobleman going into war with his valet. Valet, I think it's valet.
I don't know.
um I have not been exposed to the French language, or words that derive from French.
I know quite a lot of French. I have spent many years studying French formally, and I still don't know or don't care when you're saying words with the French origin in an English context. I'm not going to be one of those people who's like croissants or whatever. I think that's pretentious. Sorry to my friends who have studied abroad in France and do that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't care. It's fine. If we accidentally or on
Fair enough.
purpose insult the French language, I think we can handle that.
Uh, I think, and now that all of our listeners who have French as their native language have left, um,
I said what I said.
oof, um, we are. Oh, that's what I'm like. Where is my notes? It's because I'm on Wikipedia.
Ah.
um, but we get another verse of Rhodes.
Yeah.
And well, and it's the same verse of Rhodes actually that Bilbo says in chapter 1.
Mhm.
But there is one
Oh,
difference.
what's the difference? I didn't catch that.
In chapter 1, Bilbo says the line, pursuing it with eager feet. And here we get pursuing it with weary feet.
Oh.
And I think that is the difference in which these two are setting out on this adventure.
Mhm.
Frodo knows he is going into something dangerous and dark. And Bilbo was going, hopefully, for a last adventure and to rest. So weary would fit for Bilbo, but Bilbo still had that eagerness around him.
Yeah.
Whereas Frodo is already tired and his journey's barely even begun. And he makes other comments about like he's going to be thin and drawn and worn by the time he gets to Buckland.
Mhm.
Um and it's been some time since he's done any sort of hard walking. Um
Yeah, he did not
he
train for this
is
the way people train for like the Appalachian Trail. He's just going. He's just starting off with no preparation. So we'll see how that goes for him. I hope he stretches.
fair enough. This is And unfortunately, Frodo does not have the good humor of Bill Bryson's Walk in the Woods, where Bill Bryson just goes and tries to do the Appalachian Trail and doesn't necessarily succeed, but comes away with a good love of it. So if anyone hasn't read that, it's a great time. It's a fun read. Um, it almost made me want to do the Appalachian Trail, and then I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for that.
It sounds like a lot. As someone who is married to someone who has ambitions of doing the AT, it seems very intense.
When your spouse does the AT, I'll go and join them for like a week stretch at a time somewhere.
Mhm. Oh, that'll be
Somewhere
cute.
pretty.
Now I'm just thinking about you guys
Yeah.
off hiking together. That's nice.
Anyway, and then we get a creepy motherfucker.
Yeah, no, fuck this. After we make such a big deal about how sneaky and low key they're being, we get this terrifying horse and rider. No, thank you.
Where now is the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that is blowing? That is a poem from later. That's book 2, I think. Book 2, book 3. It's one of
Your
them.
guess is better than mine.
Uh, but it's a full-sized horse and a disturbing figure who is looking or smelling
Mm,
for them. And Frodo feels like he wants to put on the ring. But and Sam is like, "Oh yeah, the gaffer said he saw one of them." And Frodo's like, "Oh, that's bad."
yeah.
Um so here we have our first note of this is not a walk in the woods. This is a flight from danger. But they are still trying to keep up their spirits. We have a little walking song.
Yeah, we get so many songs in this chapter.
We get so many songs in this chapter. I think, frankly, um, I used to be part of one of those organizations that takes young people, young children, and sticks them in the woods uh, to build character and skills and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, One of those lovely organizations that's fairly well known. And so I spent a lot of time hiking in the woods as a child, and I did for a while when I was part of sort of the youth leadership of that group. Um, I managed on some of our trips to get us doing like walking songs
Mhm.
and singing while we're hiking, and I love that. I think we need more walking
It
songs.
is delightful. My similar context with that is I went to church camp for many, 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 many years, which I found out during probably the second or third time we hung out that it was also the same church camp where your roommate went and that we were there at the same time, which was amazing. We both lost our minds over that little bit of knowledge. But we would do similar with our Jesus-y church songs. And despite the Christianity of it all, it was really nice. It was really fun and great to have just some songs that everybody knew and to walk along singing them together. I have a vivid memory of being like somewhere between the age of 12 and 14 in this big chain where I had like linked arms with like five or six other girls, and we were just walking across the field singing the song together, and it was so nice and so lovely. It's great.
That's fun. Yeah, no, we have this one. We have a bath song later. I think we need more songs. We have a drinking song that gets sung as a road song.
Mhm.
I have often lamented to friends and my parents that Americans in general, we don't have enough like bits of folk music that we all know that you can start singing anywhere, anytime, and everyone is going to know it. We have a few. I mean, we've got like, but they're not folk music. We've got like Mr. Brightside. Like, everyone fucking knows Mr. Brightside. Everyone fucking knows Bohemian Rhapsody. But that is not the same
Mhm.
um, as a piece of folk music, as going into an Irish pub and everyone knows the Rattling Bog or something similar. That is not the same as when I lived in Denmark and was sitting around the table for my host dad's birthday, and his family sang like four songs all together,
Mhm.
and all of them, like, it wasn't just like, happy birthday to it. No, they were like they were singing for like a solid like 5 or 6 minutes.
Damn.
And it was all in Danish, and my Danish at that point, which was not bad, was still not anywhere near good enough to pick it up. So I have no idea what was said, but it was all like, but my host mom was telling me after, like, oh, like, these are this is common. This is part of, this just happens at like a Danish birthday celebration. People know these bits of music. People know these songs. And actually, at one point, I was doing a photography class while I was there, and as part of my photography class, I was following around this Danish musician who was playing at some woman's 40th birthday party. So I went along and I took photographs, and actually the band played at least two of those songs
Mhm.
that my host family had sung around the table. So like, it clearly is. It's something that people know, and we just don't have that.
I have said, maybe I've even said it before on this podcast, I don't want to be a parent. But now I do want to have a little Danish baby that can go to little Danish babies' birthday parties and grow up and learn a bunch of songs. Like, oh, that sounds lovely, actually. I'm going to tell my spouse I want to change our whole life plan. Be like, hey, let's go have a Danish
Let's
baby.
move to Denmark. Not just any baby, just a Danish
Yeah,
baby.
no. Or, comparable.
You both being
Yeah.
Americans.
Well, it would be Danish if it was born in Denmark, right?
Sure.
That'll be my
Anyway, then
reason
there's
for entering the country. That's what I'll tell the customs people. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, that seems reasonable. Rock
that's
solid plan.
definitely okay. The last verse of this, the home is behind, the world ahead
Mhm,
verse, that is sung by Billy Boyd, who plays Pippin in Return of the King.
mhm.
And I was reading this like, why am I suddenly feeling apprehensive? Because Billy Boyd sings this in a very slowed down, adjusted, and minor key.
Ooh.
And it's and eliminates the world behind and home ahead. So the the song that Billy Boyd sings is, home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread through shadow to the edge of night until the stars are all alight. Mist and shadow, cloud and shade, all shall fade, all shall fade.
No thanks.
Um, and it's at a very uh dark part of the story.
Mhm,
And so reading this now, right at the beginning, with that context in my brain, I was like, oh,
oh
oh,
no.
what's about to happen? Because I tried to do some research, tried to find, because it's been a while since I read this book, whether or not there is an adjustment in which he sings this later on. And I don't think he does. I don't think Pippin sings this in Return of the King, but we'll keep an eye out for it.
Mhm.
Anyway, but then we get elves.
Yeah, and another song, because why not?
Another walking song.
And I had questions about this song. Um,
Yes.
I'm gonna let you try to pronounce in the format that will be heard by other people. Whatever is the thing that starts with E, who is that? What is that? Is that a named female character? Maybe? What is that? Please tell me about it.
Elbereth.
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 Okay.
Elbereth. Elbereth Kilthoniel. Um, that uh, is a Valar. That is one of the gods.
Ooh.
Strictly speaking, their name is Varda. But in Sindarin, the language of the elves, or one of the languages of the elves, they're called Elbereth.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Varda Elentari, sounds like I'm making her name Italian, but Elbereth Gilthoniel, she is queen of the Valar, queen of this group of gods, essentially.
Mhm.
Whether or not they are actually gods is up for
Ooh,
debate.
spicy.
And the Silmarillion is not super clear on that. And Tolkien, being a Christian, sort of adopts the same. Uh, I I would liken the way that he refers to the Valar as a similar way that Snorri Sturluson refers to the Aesir in the Prose Edda, as powerful beings, great heroes, that shaped the world as it is. But we're not gods, because
Mhm.
there's only one god,
Sure.
of course. But anyway, we get an elvish walking song, and it's sung in the common tongue. But Frodo hears Elbereth, and he knows these are high elves. These are, and they greet each other, and the elves are hesitant to bring them along
They express that
until,
sassily.
yeah, of course, um, because elves are subject to the first law.
Mhm.
Elves are magical beings, therefore they are subject to the law that magic makes you dramatic. And in elvish, it tends to be more they're sassy about
Yeah.
it, but um, but they're hesitant to bring the hobbits along until they mention the Black Riders and the fact that they've had two encounters with them so far.
Mhm.
Um, and the elves are like, You better come with us.
Yeah, like we shouldn't talk about this here in the open.
And Frodo greets them in in their language because he's studied some of it. Ellen sila lumen omentielvo. A star shines upon the hour of our meeting.
And the elves, of course, respond sassily to that and go, "Oh, don't tell any secrets around this guy."
I have the most glorious tangent to that.
Please, please tell me.
Back in years and years ago, I was in New York,
Oh, I
um,
think I know this one.
with my
Mhm.
family, and we went to this little Italian place on, oh God, I want to say it was Upper West Side, Upper East Side. It was one of them.
One of the upper
It was
sides.
Upper something,
Mhm.
one of the upper sides, and like the entire staff of this place was Italian from Italy. Um, and so of course Italian is getting thrown around between all the servers and between the kitchen staff, and like you can hear it flying everywhere. And my dad, being who he is, um, said something in Italian, and I don't remember what it was, to our server, or to the owner who was like walking by. Um, and later on, one of the like they clearly were like using Italian to like insult someone who had just left or like say something slightly sassy.
Mhm.
And the server was like literally like said to the room, like, you can't say that shit. This dude understands you. And but also I have to wonder, like, you're in New York City, the fucking most international city in the United States, where you know probably a quarter of the city speaks a romance language anyway.
Mhm.
Like, how long do you think you're going to get away with shit?
It depends how good their food is, I
I
guess.
I mean, it was excellent. I do remember it was incredible. Absolutely phenomenal. I think the chef was from Florence or something. Just anyway, uh but yes, the hey, don't say anything stupid. This dude understands you. Is a lovely little bit. I was trying to listen to I uh people pronouncing that bit of
Mhm.
Elvish, and I found a small recording of Tolkien saying it.
Ooh, that's really cool.
Ellen, Sila, Lumen, Omenti Elvo.
And I definitely did not get that quite right. He puts the emphasis in Omentielvo on the second part. It's like Omentielvo, or it's not quite. I'm also pronouncing it like an Italian, I feel
Mhm.
like you'd pronounce that as an Italian word. Ellen sila lumen Omentielvo. Not quite,
Unfortunate.
but
Anyway,
you
they
know,
go along with the elves
I
for a
am not an
while.
elf, and they start to get tired, and
I think you
then
can
what
be
happens,
excused for
Sam?
that. So this was kind of unclear to me what specifically happens with their shelter situation, but in terms of their conversation, um, Frodo presses about the Black Riders and Gildor question mark? How do you say it? Okay, Gildor. Good. I'm so afraid of
Gildor.
embarrassing myself and saying something horribly wrong. Um, but Gildor won't tell him because he worries. And I literally wrote Bilbo instead of Frodo in my notes because he worries that Frodo will be too scared to continue if he tells him more about the Black Riders. So clearly he knows something. And that's comforting, but they don't really get a lot of specific information out of him. There is a sweet moment where Frodo stays awake talking with Gildor, and Sam is like curled up at his feet. And this isn't written in the text, but it was written by me in a text to you ages ago about how he's definitely like, stroking Sam's hair at this point. There is some affectionate physical contact happening between these two. There simply must be. But
Oh, of course. There's no way that there can't
yeah, no,
be.
it's
In the way that we're reading this
yeah,
book,
no,
no.
absolutely. And then we get a quote which made me angry because it's a good quote, but I recognize it from a stupid source. So, they're talking about, oh, maybe ask Gandalf for information, da, 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 da. And then Gildor says, but it is said, do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger. The choice is yours, to go or wait. But of course, that makes me think of the stupid fucking t-shirt that's like, do not meddle in the affairs of dragons, for you are crunchy and good with ketchup. And that just made me so mad because originally it was such a good quote and it just makes me think of the stupid shirt. And then I realized that there is also a second half to the quote, because of course this is a witty back and forth, where Frodo says, and it is also said, answered Frodo, go not to the elves for counsel, for they will say both no and yes, which I love. So at least we get some sass out of it. But I was just mad, A, that we weren't getting information, and B, that this good quote was turned into a stupid shirt, and that's all I can think of when I hear it.
Well, I mean, that is what happens with the father of modern fantasy, right? We are so like Tolkien's work has been taken and run with. That feels grammatically wrong, but we're
I
going
get
to
the
run
point.
with
It's
it.
fine.
You do. I hope our listeners do as well. Anyway, but yeah, elves seldom give unguarded advice, for advice is a dangerous gift, even from the wise to the wise, and all courses may run ill.
Hmm.
So I'm adding another corollary
Okay.
to our first law, which is sufficiently magical beings will only speak in service to the plot,
Hmm.
or something to that
I
effect.
like it.
I'll tweak it a little bit, but we're getting this with Gandalf. We're getting this with Gildor. We're gonna get this with fucking Elrond. Like all of these magical, powerful beings who we know we're supposed to go to for advice are not going to give any fucking
Hmm.
advice. And I do this as a when I'm playing a character as a dungeon master. When my players are like, go to the great wizard and they're like, help. I'm like, well, you could do A or you could do B. And who's to say what will happen? And they're like, really? Fuck you. And I'm like, yeah, um, that's the point.
I also feel like there's a little bit of the I'm not going to be held responsible for whatever you do based on my advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. You can take this information, but if you go and get killed because you followed it, it's not really my problem.
Yeah, yeah, that's very much a bit of it. There is another line in here that I want us to think about and to
Mhm.
watch before we move on. Um, and actually, before we do that, I want to jump back a little bit. You had said you're not really sure what their lodgings are here. I almost wasn't either. I had to read it like two or three times.
Yeah.
But it does sort of look like as if they find a clearing, some sort of clearing that either the elves have set up ahead of time or they have magically activated or stumbled into, almost like those clearings in Mirkwood in The Hobbit,
Hmm.
in which it's set up for feasting and for parties and for merriment. Um, I'm almost seeing it as back in our D&D campaign, where you as our DM gave us the lovely in the
Oh,
understory.
yeah. I did do that.
You did do that, which was an inn where the walls and the the roof were just giant
Yes. So
trees.
specifically, it was 2 trees, and they were huge. Like, I don't know circumferences, but, easily like 100 feet around, like enormous trees, one on each end. And then they had these branches that went up and made this canopy of the ceiling, and it had little twinkly lights all up in the leaves and little spots where you could peek through and see the sky, but it was magical, so it didn't rain or get cold or gross or anything. And it was so cozy and made of trees and wonderful. And it was run by a Furbolg lady who had adorable little babies who you had rescued. It was great.
Yeah, so that's almost what I was thinking of, was something like the understory.
Nice and cute before I killed a player character. Or was that after I killed a player character?
That was after you killed a player character.
To make up for killing a player character. Oops.
Anyway, but the line that I want us to keep an eye on here is Gildor saying, or is Frodo asking Gildor, "But where shall I find courage?" asked Frodo. "That is what I chiefly need." "Courage is found in unlikely places," said Gildor. "Be of good hope. Sleep now. In the morning we shall have gone, but we will send our messages through the lands." Courage is found in unlikely places. Where is the party finding their courage? Where is that courage coming from? Who is showing that courage and why? And I want to pay attention to that throughout this story. So now that we've spent an hour on chapter 3, do you have anything, and associated tangents, do you have anything else for chapter 3?
Let me see. And now, of course, Firefox is freezing, so it'll be a second.
The intelligent Firefox, the intelligent fox that is saying that this is a queer platonic group.
The fox that cares about your privacy. Oh, the only other thing that I wanted to mention from chapter 3 is that we just get a little bit of fun constellations as they're walking around at night, and some descriptions of this one is rising and this one has some cool stars in it. And it all just sort of washed over me. I didn't pick out anything specific, but I thought it was nice and it enriched the world and gave me a very pleasant vision of walking at night. So A+ to that. Also, imagine walking at night. Just imagine being able to do that and the only thing you're worried about being dark riders. Wow.
I mean, I don't know. That's sort of what I worry about here, living in a city, walking at night.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
being a femme of center person.
I go out with my big dog, who is a big weenie, but I hope people don't know he's weenie and at least leave me alone. But imagine just going on a fun adventure at night and not stressing so much. That'd be great.
See, Frodo should have brought an American bully with him and
get some of the dogs from
all of his problems.
The next chapter or two. I forget what chapter they come up to.
Yes, chapter 4, A Shortcut to Mushrooms.
Yeah, some of Farmer Maggot's dogs. Get them.
We get very quickly Pippin's little sass at Frodo, where Frodo is like, "I want to think." "Good heavens," said Pippin, "at breakfast?"
Yeah, my note for this was Bilbo wakes up in a beautiful living tree bed and he has a back and
Bilbo?
Fuck, again! I wrote that. Frodo, god damn it. But literally, that was in my notes. Listeners, we're doing our best. We're really trying. Frodo wakes up in a bed made of living trees, and he has a back and forth with Pippin, who is asking him too many goddamn questions. This is a very don't talk to me before I've had my second breakfast kind of energy.
Yeah. And he and Sam says, basically, "I would go to the ends of the earth for
He
you."
says he'd go to the moon for him.
And Frodo asks him, are you sure you want to keep coming on this dangerous adventure? You've seen elves now. And Sam says, they seemed so old and young and so gay and sad, as it were.
What a mood.
Thanks, Sam. And Frodo says, "Gandalf chose me a good companion." Yeah, he's good at that. That's a talent of his. He knows how to pick them. Gandalf, if we can assign one thing to Gandalf, he's a damn good talent scout.
He puts people in fun dynamics. Also, for the record, I would go to the moon for you. I would go on a dangerous adventure with you.
Thanks, Sammy. And so Frodo says he's content. We're going to go together. We're going to be okay. Anyway, Frodo goes, are we ready to go? And Pippin's like, I've been ready to go for hours. Come on, you old man. Let's go.
I do feel for Pippin a little bit because I am a morning person and I do tend to be up and ready to start my day immediately. So although I'm not as
You
rude as
certainly
Pippin, I do feel his frustration of like, come on, like if I am going to go with my spouse to get breakfast, for example, and they're like, okay, we're going to go out and get breakfast. And then it's like 10:30 and they're still in bed. And I'm like, I thought we were getting breakfast. I'm hungry. I've been waiting for breakfast. And then I get hangry and then that's just no good.
Oof.
Pippin also wants a drink, which Frodo vetoes that
Pippin
idea.
wants a drink and he doesn't want to take a shortcut because shortcuts make long delays.
Which is such a good little phrase. And I feel like I'm going to use that in my everyday life.
Little phrase. It feels related to me like it feels like it's related to Murphy's Law.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment. And Murphy's first corollary, the other line always moves faster.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking a lot about universal laws here.
Mm-hmm.
Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Magic makes you dramatic. Anyway, Pippin wants a drink, but we get a walking and drinking song.
Mm-hmm.
Or a drinking song repurposed as a walking song. But he is convinced by creepy sounds that are definitely not a bird and definitely not a hobbit. And definitely from creepy things following them, to take a little bit of a detour. And then what, Sammy?
So then I think there's some more things that happen in between, but I skipped it. They like crawl through a ditch for a while. And they're being followed by the creepy Black Rider. I skipped over most of that in my notes, so we can revisit it in more detail if you want. But what I skipped right to was the mushroom incident in Frodo's youth that he recognizes the field that they're in. Is like, oh no, I was stealing mushrooms from this guy when I was a kid, and his dog scared the shit out of me, and then he brought me back to his house and beat me, and then told his dogs that they could eat me if I ever came back. So he is, remembering all of this stuff from his youth. And
it has been, for the record, over 30 years.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, but he is still like, oh shit, like that incident left an impression. But they have a much more pleasant encounter with the Farmer Maggot, who gives them some beer and welcomes them in and is totally fine and chill and nice about everything. But Sam is just being all huffy because he doesn't trust anyone who was unkind to Frodo. And I loved that. He's like, I'll drink your beer, but I'm a little suspicious of it. I'm suspicious of you because you can't be that nice if you were mean to Frodo one time, which, like, don't beat people. That's not good. I'm not advocating for that. But it was one thing that happened a super long time ago that Frodo kind of deserved within the context of the story. But he's still just like, Frodo can do no wrong. So, and I love that.
Anyway, but they have their nice dinner with Farmer
Lots
Maggot
of mushrooms.
and his family and his farmhands. Lots of mushrooms and bacon and beer. And then Farmer Maggot goes to take them to the ferry. And Mrs. Maggot sends Frodo off with a basket of mushrooms.
Yeah. I think Frodo calls her something like a queen among farmers' wives or something. He has very high praise for Mrs. Maggot.
Yes. Incredible. That comes in the next chapter at one point when they're serving their second dinner. But they meet up with Mary. They think it might be a Black Rider, but it is Mary. And then we get into chapter 5, A Conspiracy Unmasked.
Oh, one more thing before we go to chapter 5. Farmer Maggot's dogs answers a question that I have asked you previously in many of our conversations about whether or not hobbits have pets, because I have always thought that they seem like cat people and that they would do well with cats. But here we have evidence that they have dogs, and these are working dogs, so they're not necessarily pets, but they're dogs, so that's close enough.
They're dogs. We have Grip, Fang, and Wolf.
Which, if anyone ever gets 3 dogs at the same time and needs names for them, that's amazing. And it would be equally good if you had, like livestock guardian dogs or like big scary dogs, or if you just had like some little tiny like Pomeranians or something, like something not scary at all.
Oh my god. Imagine tiny little fucking Pomeranians. Anyway, but yeah, Maggots encountered the Black Riders and is like, no, we might have had our disagreements in the past. I'm not going to give you up to those motherfuckers. Uh, they can stay the fuck off of my land. You're always welcome.
Mhm.
Don't steal my mushrooms, but you're always welcome. But anyway, then he takes them on, gives them mushrooms, and sends them on their way. We get a little bit of history on the Brandybuck clan in the beginning of chapter 5.
That was very fun. I don't think we need to get into it too much because it's sort of just in the weeds of
No.
exposition, but it was really fun and I enjoyed it a lot.
I like, we're going to get more of this. I do love Tolkien's habit of giving us a page to 2 pages of exposition.
Mhm.
Because I'm a world building nerd
You don't
and
say.
Tolkien's a world building nerd. And so us getting bits about, the Brandybuck clan being weird because they like boats and some of them can swim.
Mhm.
That's just very fun to me. But we get a second dinner, a second supper with the mushrooms.
At Frodo's new house.
At Frodo's new house that he got at Crick Hollow, and a bath song.
Bath song, the cutest thing in the universe.
And there's 3 bathtubs.
Mhm.
What and this is supposed to be a modest home.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be he's downsizing from Bag End. So how many bathtubs did Bag End have?
And I'm envisioning these 3 bathtubs all being in one room just from the way that they're described. I feel like it would make more sense
Yeah.
logistically for them to be in 3 separate rooms if we're thinking of sort of standard human architecture, but there is something just so charming about all of the bathtubs being in one room. I love it.
It's very fun. I really enjoy it. And we get our second supper, where Frodo insists that he will serve the mushrooms.
Mhm.
And then we get the reveal.
Yes, I love this.
Where Pippin is, it says that, cousin Frodo has been very close, but the time has come for him to open out. Basically, we know you, motherfucker.
We've seen you being edgy and brooding and muttering under your breath if you'll ever see your hobbit hole again. Like, come on. Did you think that we were not going to pick up on all of this edgy shit you were doing, buddy? Like, we've known for a super long time, and we have literally everything ready to go on your adventure whenever.
Yeah. Oh, and also we also know about the ring.
Oh yeah, that too. That big secret that you think you're keeping. No, you're not that clever. We totally saw Bilbo use it to hide from the Sackville Bagginses, so.
Which is honestly the best use for
Yeah.
it. But then, and Mary's like, I kept this to myself until I started to get worried, and then I assembled our little conspiracy, and Sam told us everything.
And then Sam feels so bad.
Sam, I love it so much. But, and Frodo goes, well, I mean, fine, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You can come along. And they were like, yeah, I mean, there wasn't any question about that. We were going to follow you.
And they give, I think it's Mary giving a beautiful speech about friendship that ends with, you can trust us to stick to you through thick and thin to the bitter end. And you can trust us to keep any secret of yours closer than you keep it yourself. But you cannot trust us to let you face trouble alone and go off without a word. We are your friends, Frodo.
I mean, I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah.
We get one last song, and we learn Fatty Bulger is staying behind to sort of keep the house and keep up the myth that Frodo is still here. but our we now have our little group
Mhm.
assembled, and they are who are going to plunge into the old forest
Spooky.
come tomorrow morning. So next time we'll pick up with the old forest and we will discuss some of my favorite little
Oh, I'm
bits
excited.
uh, of this early part of Lord of the Rings, and some very confusing shit. But anyway, if thank you for sticking with us through this long bit, this fairly long episode here, right out the bat. But if you would like to continue following us on our journey through Lord of the Rings, you absolutely can do that. You can find us wherever we have our podcast right now. Um, you can tell your friends about us. Um, share our podcast with them. Word of mouth is a great way for podcasts to spread. And you can follow us on our social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, so long as all of those uh, sites are functional and in use and not banned by the government or falling to pieces. At Fan App Pod on all of those. And you can always send us an email at thefandomapprentice@gmail.com. Um, anything else, Sammy?
No, I'm just excited because now I am fully out of anything resembling rereading. I think I had gotten up through chapter 3 when I had first start this book before we decided that we were going to do the podcast, and then I stopped reading so I could read along with the show. So now I am fully in brand new content. I have no idea what's coming. I hope that it's nothing sad. Sure do hope that nothing sad happens to any of our sweet babies. So I'm sure I won't be disappointed.
I am sure you are going to have no
Mm-mm.
issues. And with that, dear listener, we will catch you all next time. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you
See you
again.
next time.
The Phantom Apprentice is produced and edited by Ryn and Sam. Our music was composed and performed by James, and our art is by Casey Turgeon. This podcast is created for non-commercial entertainment purposes, and the opinions expressed therein are our own and are not reflective of the opinions of any other person or organization. The content discussed is the property of the Tolkien estate and is used here under fair use.